There's a lot of research and discussion about young people leaving the church anymore. But what if we stopped analyzing and started changing how we approach student ministry? Given the right opportunity, students will blow your mind with their spirituality and passion for faith. So what if instead of sermons, we had conversations? What if instead of sanctuaries, we created new spaces? Space where students can argue, think, and discover what they believe and why. A space where students can discuss what's on their heart without preconceived notions and have conversations that happen naturally, organically. Welcome to the Organic Ministry Project. All right, so spiritual versus religious. So there's a lot of people that are talking about they are spiritual but not religious anymore. And I've actually been looking at that myself and trying to figure out, can you be spiritual but not religious? And then also, can you be religious but not spiritual? What do you guys think?
Define spiritual and define religious.
So in the dictionary, religious is relating to or believing in a religion. And that's it. That's basically it. Forming part of someone's thought about or worship of a divine being.
Okay.
And then spiritual would be... Oh, no. Okay. Of relating to or affecting the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. So.
Okay. So, spiritual could be what?
Spiritual could be very individualistic.
Yeah,
if you wanted
it's
it
very
to.
personal.
I think
Okay.
someone who doesn't believe in God could still be very spiritual. Someone who's
Okay.
meditates, somebody who is very in tune with, they spend time for themselves. Someone
Okay.
who's in tune with what they feel is right, what they feel is they should act out. Not necessarily they have to interact with anybody else. I think spirituality can be very individualistic, while religious refers to a body of religion a doctrine that you believe in, and that
You can conform
go.
to.
Yeah, and usually that relates to a congregation.
Okay.
Usually there's a congregation of believers that believe in the same thing you do.
So does spiritual need a God?
I don't think spirituality needs to necessarily
Right.
have to do with God.
Okay.
I think spirituality does have something sacred, though. I think every human being has something that they hold sacred, whether it is a person, a deistic being, or a cause. So,
Okay.
I think every person has a spiritual side of them. It doesn't have to be like going to church or being a godly person. It doesn't have to do with God at all necessarily. It's just a side of the person.
And going along with that, if they're in tune with that, if they understand what they themselves believe and what they strongly support, whether that's a God or not, that they can be strongly spiritual.
They could be spiritual and like personal fulfillment
Yeah.
Okay.
and like happiness and the search for it.
So I guess when you asked the original question of, let me get this straight, it was, is there a connection between spirituality and religion?
Well, it's, can you be spiritual without
Okay.
religion?
And do you mean Christian spiritual? Is that, because I kind of...
No,
is it
let's talk about, just spiritual in general, because I have a lot of really good friends who, they go on the retreats where they're out in nature and meditating and stacking rocks and drawing in the sand, and they do those sorts of things, and they come back. I'm actually jealous of them sometimes, because they come back and somehow they have found this inner peace without sitting through a 9-hour worship service and a sermon. So, there's part of me that's sitting here going, that there's something to this spiritual but not religious side of things.
So to answer your question, yes, you can be spiritual without religious. You can be religious without. In my mind, I think you can be spiritual without having a body of religion or a body of doctrine that you need to follow. And you can be religious but not be. You could go home from church and not be very in tune with yourself. You don't have an inner peace. So I would define that as not being very spiritual. You don't connect with anything, but you went to church today, you maybe believe in a doctrine. So maybe you're religious, but you're not in tune with yourself, you don't have an inner peace.
So if you're saying that you're spiritual but not religious, are you saying that you're in tune with yourself but you don't believe in anything?
I think it's not believing in anything, I just don't think it's believing in a specific like one specific thing that a lot of people believe in. It's not like one specific religion. It's more so just, like Elizabeth said, a cause, or just some kind of like personal idea or like expectation of yourself.
Now, are you asking whether it is possible to be spiritual but not religious, or are you saying is it beneficial? Because I think those are two different things, and that's what I was going off of. Is it productive as a Christian, which I am, and that's the perspective I'm looking at it from. Is it productive as a Christian to be spiritual, but to say I don't want anything to do with the religious side? They can remain separate. I don't think that's where I was going with that question. So I don't know if you're addressing the possibility of being spiritual and not religious. Is that what you're talking about?
I was purely definition, purely individual basis. That's what I was talking about. I feel like that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
Right, so if we're talking spiritual but not religious, so we've drawn a line saying you can be spiritual but not religious. Now on the flip side, can you be religious and not spiritual?
Absolutely.
How so? Describe it.
You can easily give me the definition of spirituality again, so I'm very clear on this.
Okay.
Are you getting it?
Yeah. Of relating to or affecting the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. So I think
it's very inner. It's very
it's very personal.
So it's almost feeling like
It's a connection.
you're compelled, you're connected inside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely easy for you to like go to church and even just pray.
Mm-hmm.
You know, something that is an actual personal spiritual thing, practice that people do, like in religion, and you still don't feel the connection because I feel like it's because you aren't putting in that side, maybe.
Okay.
You aren't opening yourself up to that.
Okay.
I think your spirituality and religiosity, sometimes they don't have to go hand in hand necessarily. So you can be religious and you can be spiritual, but your spiritual side might not be going hand in hand with the religion that you practice.
Okay.
So you might be spiritual, not necessarily in a worshipful deistic way, like not like God-centered. You might be spiritual towards something else, but still attend like a church.
But is that the point of religion? To have two separate things? To be religious and not spiritual, or have a separate spiritual element
I don't
to
think
your...
it's the point, but I think it can easily happen.
Okay.
I think it happens a lot of the time.
You feel like most people are that way?
I think so, yeah. But I also know a lot of people who tell me, oh, I have a huge spiritual connection, but
Okay.
it's kind of sometimes hard for me to actually see that.
Now, Taylor was saying that to be spiritual, you kind of need to have that group.
I think to be religious, you need to have a group. I don't think you need to have a group to be spiritual.
I agree.
To be spiritual, I don't think so. But if you're moving into the realm of, I want to live a Christian life that is growing, that is, learning more about God, growing in my relationship with God. If you're looking at it from that perspective, I think that you need, and I'm not saying, you need this building, but you need a body of believers, of people that share similar values, the same beliefs, and yet it may not be the exact same beliefs. Like Ben may have things that, differ from what I think about different things, but at the bottom line, at the end of the day, we still are both trying to grow closer to God, and we happen to share the same denomination, but I think it's important that we have people around us that we can grow with in our journey. We're going to be at different points, but I think you need a body of believers. That's just my opinion.
So what do you think of all the people out there that are, saying, I follow Jesus, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious? There's lots of Christians that are saying, I really don't care about the organization itself. I'm here for this spiritual element and what this Jesus guy says to do.
Are you saying what we think of that?
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for that.
How so?
I mean, you can see it even within our own church, the things that kind of get in the way of like helping you be spiritual, which is what our church tries to do, like the politics and stuff. Like, we talk about this, but a lot of people, I'm sure, more than a few of us in this group, feel that the church, the organization, everything behind it isn't always beneficial towards your spirituality. And if you want to disconnect yourself from that and actually be a Christ follower, but not be part of like a body of people who also say they are, but like in reality it kind of gets really disgusting. I have a lot of respect for that. If you're willing to say like, no, this isn't right, I'm going to take a step back from what everybody says is and do my own thing, I have a lot of respect for that.
See, I think I have more respect for someone though who says, I don't like what's going on here, I'm going to change what's going on here. And that may be easier said than done, but I think when you may get ostracized as a result of it, but I think to start off by saying, okay, look, there's a problem here in this church, like something needs to be done, and not like starting a coup or anything. Okay. I don't mean starting an uprising, but saying, okay, this is something that we need to look at changing, revolutionize, and yeah, you might get ostracized. That's just a result, I think, sometimes, unfortunately.
All right. Come on in. So, therefore, what needs to change within religion for people to become more spiritual within religion?
I think it's politics. At least with
Okay. Religion needs to be more spiritual, and therefore you're saying we need to get rid of the politics. Right? Is that what it is? It shouldn't be politics.
That's ridiculous.
So,
That's not a place.
It adds,
Define
Politics is
politics,
always
yeah.
based on leaders. Like, that's, to me, what I think of when I think about Miss Politics is, like,
no, not necessarily.
Do politics-
the
Yeah, do they come about as having a hierarchy of leadership? Because I think you do need leadership within the church.
Mm-hmm.
You do need a hierarchy of leadership. Now, there are some bad things that come out of politics, of course, but I don't know. Define. Yeah.
Okay. The activities associated with the governance of a country or other area, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power.
It's all about power. Politics is about power.
The thing is, that's what almost everything is about. But I think that church is one of the places where it shouldn't be about power, because the whole point of church is that we're powerless.
Okay.
That's why we need God. That's why we need somewhere to go to be able to feel like it's okay that we're powerless, because there's something beyond that, right? Mm-hmm. But I think that people are like, even though we're powerless, I'm slightly less powerless than them.
Okay. Were you going to say something?
So, if you don't think we should have politics in the church, then you don't think we should have leadership in the church?
I
don't think we should have people who feel that they're higher than everybody else, who feel the need to set an example.
I think
we're not there to set an example.
Leaders who are still equals, right? And I don't think that there should be a kind of, competitive spirit and this hunger for power in a place that is supposed to be set for, spiritual fulfillment, for closer connection with God.
But then how do you determine, how do you set up a system of leaders who meet your standard like that?
I don't think that there would be a way to do that, for someone else to do that. Like, just for someone else to implement that kind of environment. I think that it would have to be a personal thing, like for each one of those leaders.
I think that's the problem where we're at. Like,
yeah, because it's kind of like you have to have. I mean, I think you have to have leaders in the church. Otherwise nothing will get done. So, you have to have leaders, but then to decide from person to person, well, you think you're better than everyone, so we're not going to hire you. We're like, you're good, you pass, like, you can be a pastor, like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like politics is just like a bad side effect that comes along with, like, the necessary evil of, like, there has to be some structure.
Yeah, when I think politics, I don't necessarily think leadership. Because leadership and management and structure is something that, everything has to have in order to move forward.
Yeah, I think of, like, the hunger for power and control.
Yeah. And there's two different elements to this, to the politics of Christianity. You've got the evangelical Christianity, which is defined by its political stance within the Republican Party or Tea Party or whoever they're backing in that political season. And then you've got the politics of people.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, I think that, like, when I think of politics, like, I also think of, like, you know, like that mom in the church who everybody knows. She doesn't hold a position, but, like, maybe her husband's an elder or something, and she's just, like, always involved in everything. You know what I mean? Just kind of, like, almost the drama and the gossip of church.
She gets
That's
nominated
what I
to all the
refer to when I
committees.
refer
Right.
to politics that drive people away. I refer to
Right.
people being
Right,
driven
and,
away by
like,
other people who are like,
elders
you don't
and-
dress
yeah.
a certain way, you don't
Okay.
look a certain way, you don't do this, your lifestyle is in a certain way. Well, that's not what necessarily, that wouldn't be what it's about in the first place. Maybe not at the beginning when you're trying to draw people in. It should be on a very basis level. We're trying to connect make a spiritual connection with God. So to draw people in, you shouldn't be drawing them in, or you shouldn't be turning them away from, you need to dress this way before you come here, you need to look this way before you come here, you need to eat this way before you come here. Those are the politics that deter people away from church. They think it's a very standardized thing that you have to look this way or do this way, do this thing to be a part of it.
That makes it seem like it's all about control.
Yeah.
I know, well, they're controlling everything. Like, I don't want to be controlled like that. You know, I want to be able to form my own thoughts and all that. And I feel like a lot of people feel confined in a kind of, you know, conservative religious place.
I think that politics oftentimes has a really negative connotation to it, and it doesn't have to. Like, you know, like, I think we all kind of agree that there has to be some sort of leadership, some structure to bring the church or whatever area you're talking about forward, and politics will always come with that. It's the politics that, what Mike was saying, that hold people back, that is this whole discussion. But politics in general, like, you know, like, that stuff has to happen. It's the stuff that's, like, it's the old woman that says, your skirt's too short, whatever, that. It's the bad one.
So maybe politics was the wrong word, because there has to
Yeah.
be leadership. I agree with that.
Right.
But the individual drama that occurs as a result is what deters people away. I don't know if there's a singular term for that, but
Well, and I think that with politics, I think what we're kind of referring to is that jockeying for position.
right.
You know, that, you know, I'm the humblest person here sort of thing. You know, and we do, you know, it always kind of,
Or like, I'm the chair of the potluck committee, or like, I'm in charge of
Yeah.
something. You know what I mean? What?
What do you think?
Does that exist?
I don't know, probably.
yeah, there are, there's people that
That's like
strive for
me.
those. You know, they want to be the head elder, or the head deacon, or the chair of the potluck committee, or they want to be part of the social committee, so that they can influence
Yeah.
the way that other people connect or interact or grow spiritually. And what's behind that? Do they feel like they're more spiritually in tune?
Okay, well, I wouldn't generalize that. I mean, I think there are people who just like want to get involved in church, and
Sure.
like, they like social events, and they're good at
Nope.
planning or whatever.
Anybody who wants to get involved is bad.
We're all horrible.
All horrible.
I think
See you all in hell.
Or corrupt.
I think people just have different spiritual gifts, and if you realize in which area your spiritual gift is in, I find it perfectly acceptable for you to strive to be at the top of that committee, whatever it is. And if you know that that's like the way you can influence most people. It's not necessarily a power hunger, it's, I know this is what God called me to do, so I'm gonna strive to get to where God called me.
Now, what about when those spiritual gifts conflict?
Give me an example.
Contemporary worship versus traditional worship. Two battling in every denomination, every church.
Back to why should it matter? I think back to spirituality is an inner piece. So I think I don't think people should. If somebody worships over traditional worship and somebody prefers contemporary worship, I don't think they should be battling.
I mean, they're worshiping the same thing, and that's what matters. Like, I feel like they're missing the big picture.
Yeah, if they're arguing over what kind of music you're listening to, then you're missing the point.
There are, however, some styles of worship that I personally know distract me from getting in a spiritual mindset.
So
I think
for you
that's what they're-
personally,
yeah.
you should find something that.
Yeah, exactly. So I think kind of how at our church we separated the contemporary versus the traditional.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a good way of doing it because there are different people that worship in different ways.
And then
And-
that should be the end of the argument.
You should accept that other people worship
Yeah.
differently.
And then what creates problems when people don't accept it and feel the need that Well, because I'm in this position, I should have the power to tell them they can't do that.
So should corporate worship be part of religion?
What do you mean?
Isn't that what we define religion as?
Religion we define as a doctrine that people agree on.
Oh, okay. If you're
It's purely
so
a
it's not
doctrine.
liturgical. It's more just a.
Because if we're talking about spirituality being this personal, individualistic thing, the larger the group gets, the stronger the likelihood of finding division in those personal beliefs. So really, should we start saying, you know what, anybody that gets, any church that gets above 20 people needs to start splitting off, because you're just going to wind up with, the bigger the church, the more conflict, the more politics you wind up having. So yeah, then you get to a point where not even 2 services meet everybody, because, oh man, that's just too contemporary for me. I need 1992 contemporary. I don't need 2014 contemporary, right?
I think you have to reach a point where you decide, okay, our demographic mostly likes contemporary, so we're going to be a contemporary church. Or our demographic mostly likes contemporary and traditional, so you accommodate to that. But, you can't accommodate to everybody, and if that's a big enough deal to that person, then they'll find another church. Mm-hmm. Or then they'll just, deal with it. You know what I mean?
Well, then that creates strife, though. That person doesn't want to leave. That person doesn't want to have to up and leave just because they feel differently.
And that's a tough situation, because at the same you want the church to kind of meet your needs at a certain point, but at the same time, I don't think you can come into a church and expect them to cater to everything exactly as you want it. You've got to be able to give on a few things here and there. Now, where's that middle ground? I don't know.
So where does religion meet your spirituality?
I feel like in that case, though, then it's not supposed to, meet spirituality. Religion's supposed to aid spirituality. If you're not religious to actually find your spirituality, find what you're looking for, you're religious because it's supposed to help your spirituality. It's supposed to help you grow spiritually, but you have to put in some of that work on your own. It can't just be, I'm going to church, so therefore I'm going to find Jesus and have my, call to Jesus moment and be this, super spiritual person. I feel like it needs to be, I'm trying to be spiritual, I'm trying to connect with God, let me go meet with other people that can help me get there, but are helping me while I work individually as well.